There's a lot of things that I do in remodeling houses. One of them is painting, and I enjoy it. I find it relaxing. And what I do is I use my systems in order to make it go along fast and successful. If you would like to know how I do it, these are my favorite 7 ways to prep and my favorite 3 tips to painting so that it can go fast for you, you're successful, and you can enjoy it. Do this consistently, and when you do, you'll create your own system that works well for you. Then you can put your music in and roll through the day. Prepping tip number 1. You want to remove all the window treatments. Prepping tip number 2. Then remove all of the outlet and switch plate covers. And if they've been painted, sometimes you need to take a knife and score them and then pry them loose. And it's good to keep everything in a Ziploc bag. Prepping tip number 3. Then you're going to take all of your picture hangers and your nails. Now, if I know that I'm going to put that picture back in that place, I won't fill that hole. Otherwise, I'm going to show you how to fill that hole. So this is Adam, and he's going to help us with a few of these steps.
Hello, I'm Adam. Going to show you how to remove the drywall screw from the anchor and remove the anchor so that you can do an easy paint over and it'll be quick and easy. All right, here we go. First step, take off the screw or take out the screw. All right, and as you see, the anchor's right there. Now, we're gonna take the razor blade, the safety knife is what I like to call it, and we go around it, cut the end off, smooth it out. All right, and then put that down. Get the butt of the screwdriver, which is round butt. Round butts are good. And then you just press it to make a dimple. All right, and that's it. All right, you can put spackle in this hole, a little divot there, but we're just gonna use a 45-minute sheetrock mud, and that way it'll take care of the problem quick and easy.
So for all the other nail holes, the quick way to identify them is to take a light and stick it up against the wall. You can quickly see how they stick out. So you want to sand those flush first. If it won't sand flush, then take the butt of the screwdriver handle again and make a dimple. So now it's dimpled in. So Adam said use spackle or 45-minute mud. This is 45-minute mud. You can get it in 5-minute, 20-minute, 60-minute. What we're doing is we're mixing our own for a reason. Spackle comes in small containers, and we're gonna go do this whole house. So fill in the hole and strike it. Now, I'm not gonna overfill that so I don't have to sand extra. The difference between spackle and sheetrock mud is that sheetrock mud will dimple. The difference between regular sheetrock mud and this 45-minute mud is that it has a catalyst in it so that it will solidify. It's not going to be dry, but it'll be solid in 45 minutes, and so it won't dimple. That's what we're after. Non-shrinking, either spackle or 45-minute mud. So here is where they've nailed into the wall for a picture. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a big bump, and I'm going to show you why we dimple. So when I take sheetrock mud and strike it across there, it leaves this big sheetrock bump. While if we dimple, it leaves just a little teeny bit of sheetrock mud in the hole. That's what we're after. There's still a little bit of a bump. I can hit that one. That's so small, it won't catch your eye. If I take the light off of it, you're not going to catch it, but we want to do the best job that's possible. Prepping tip number 4. So for walls that are big, and we've got this whole room to do it, we want to do it quickly, we use a sheetrock sanding pole with sanding screen. The reason why we're sanding the wall is if you ran your hand over it, you'll feel all the dust from the last time someone painted the roller covers and where somebody didn't dimple all the nail holes. So if your wall's smooth, great, skip this step. But otherwise, we sand the entire wall and it makes for a better paint job next.
All right, while you have your sanding pole out, you should go over and sand your baseboard. Get all the dust and residue off.
Pay special attention to light switches and outlets. Here, it's been painted over and around. I can take a razor and that'll get a lot of the bad stuff. And then I use my sanding sponge and try to get that flat. That's much better. Then the next thing you want to do is sand the top of the baseboard. Sometimes the design is different, so you might have to work through it. A good sanding sponge will contour to the shape of the top of the baseboard. But the big thing you want to do is get rid of all the big bumps. Then come through and sand all your trim. Just a light pass is good. And all you're after is to get rid of the big bumps of everything. Prepping tip number 5.
All right, so after you do that, you're going to get a paintbrush. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to dust off the top of the window, the side, then do the chair rail. And then do the baseboard.
So now you vacuum the floors or sweep them and get everything clean. Prepping tip number 6. Next, tape off all your switches, your thermostats, and your outlet to prevent paint from getting on them. Next, put plastic over top of everything that you don't want to get paint on. This could be a refrigerator, chandelier, and in some cases, like this particular one, if I unscrew these nuts, the whole thing will drop down. I made it so it's just a little bit loose, so I can take my paintbrush and put it up underneath there. And then just in case, and I'm good, but put some tape around it and you're good. So next we want to put the tarps down on the floor and cover the floor up wherever we're going to paint. And we'll shift these around if we don't have enough. Prepping tip number 7. Next we're going to get our caulk ready. Then I just wet a paper towel. Then I caulk the top of the baseboard and anywhere that there's a crack between the sheetrock and the trim. Finally, now we're ready to paint the walls. I like to paint the ceiling first, and one of the reasons why is when I go to cut in the ceiling, I can be a little bit sloppy. I actually want to get some white ceiling paint over on the wall. Then when I cut the wall in, I can make a nice crisp line. I'm going to show you how to make a nice crisp line with cutting in. But first we need to prepare our painting equipment. This is a regular paintbrush. I'm not going to go into sizes. And then we have 5 gallons of paint, a roller pan, and the roller cover. I'm going to tell you, if you go and buy the cheap roller covers, that's what creates all the dust nibs on the walls that we just spent so much time sanding away. So buy good quality roller covers, and next time around you won't have that kind of problem. Well, I don't want to cut in the paint from either the roller tray or the 5 gallons, and even if you're using a 1 gallon, I don't want to use a half a gallon of paint cutting in that top line at the ceiling or moving it around in the base and the corners. So I'm going to put it in a smaller container. But first, let me show you how to prepare your brush. My favorite painting tip, number 1. So since I'm using latex paints are cleaned with water. If I was using an oil-based paint, it's cleaned with mineral spirits. So since I'm using latex, I'm going to prime this brush and get it wet. There's 2 reasons why. One is because it will help soak the paint back up into the bristle. And then the second reason is, if you don't, then this is all dry, and when you dip into the paint, you'll have a crusty, dry paint problem. Then you've got a problem with cleaning the brushes later on. So I'm going to put paint in my tray and my can at the same time. Remember that wet paper towel? Now we're good to go. My favorite painting tip, number 2. Okay, so first, when I use paint, I don't put it in there and then wipe it off. That's a mistake. So put in what paint you want on your brush and then paint the wall. So for cutting in, what I do is I get a lot of the paint on the wall, and there's a small bead right there. I'm going to take advantage of that. That's going to continue to load my brush. Now I'm going to cut in nice and clean up against the ceiling or the trim, whatever it is that I'm painting against. Nice clean line. This has to happen twice. You've got to put 2 coats on. But if you try to dip the paint and then put it in, that big bead is going to be in your corner and you're not going to get it out. So do this. It's simple to do. So when I get to corners, I want to come about 3 inches away. I want to go about 3 inches from the top of my ceiling down and 3 inches from my baseboard up. And the reason why is when I roll the paint, I'm not going to take my paint roller and touch the next wall or touch the ceiling or touch the baseboard. I'm just rolling the walls. Okay, so while I'm cutting in on the trim, when I get to the baseboard, I really want to cover the corner in the baseboard where I just caulked, and I want to come up about 3 inches. I purposefully want to get some on the baseboard, because when I come back to cut in the baseboard, it's really easy to get that white line nice and crisp in the corner, while if I were to paint the baseboard first, it's very hard to put yourself in an angle so you can see whether you're cutting that line in first. So it's the opposite. We're going to paint the ceiling first, over paint the corner. You're going to cut in the top of the wall. You're going to come down and you're going to over paint the corner on the base, and then you can cut in the base. My favorite painting tip, number 3. So for what I want to do now that I got everything cut in is I want to paint the walls. And part of the trick is getting your paint roller loaded up. Now, everything shouldn't be dripping off of there, but there's paint on there. I always want to start about 6-8 inches off the base, come up full length all the way to the ceiling. This is an 8-foot ceiling. I can do 9 feet, 10 foot, it's a different story, and then come down. Now when I do this, there's a bead of paint on this side of the roller. So the next layer, start about 6 or 8 inches off of the ground and come up. There's not a lot of pressure on this side, so it smooths out that bead that was left, that seam on this side. And so all the way up. And the reason why I leave about 8 inches is because there's a lot of paint just wanting to drip off there. If I start at the bottom, it's all gonna drip down over top of the base. Then I got a mess. I don't need to deal with that. So start off about 8 or 10 inches. And then when you come back down, you're gonna catch that. Your roller's dry with paint. Take your time. Look for those little dots of the previous color. Now, this is a pretty decent paint, and you can see that there pretty much is no blue showing. However, once that dries, there's gonna be a hue of blue. So we're definitely gonna have to paint this twice. Pretty much every single time, I'm always painting everything twice. It makes for a nice solid color. So that's cut in twice, roll the wall twice. Nice solid monochrome color. We finished this project. It came out really nice. Fresh and clean, just like the customer wanted. I hope yours turns out just as nice. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us out. And thank you for watching.